Come in. How do you do, miss? I don't believe she does. Good morning, ladies. Remind me to give you a rise next week. That's a terrible litter, as the Alsatians said to the fox terrier. Come in. A little bit to the left, beautiful.
Just a minute, please. You can't go in there.
I'm a busy man, but I've always got time for a beautiful girl, and you are a beautiful girl. Would you like to have supper with me one night? You don't mind having it in paper, do you?
That's Sir George Betham's private office.
That's okay, sweetheart. I've got to see him on private business.
Yes, but he's busy, and besides, Sir George never sees anyone without an appointment.
I never had time to give him one. Come in. Oh, what an echo. Very much. I expected more, but I'm satisfied. Blimey, you don't know what to wear this weather, do you, lady? It's raining again, Ducky. You all right in here? That's right. You'll be all right. Stay where you are. I know exactly what you're saying to yourselves. You're saying to yourselves, why is he dressed like that? I'll tell you why I'm dressed like this. I'm a commercial traveller, and I'm ready for bed. Now, listen.
Max Miller used to do that one thing to me of looking off stage all the time. You know, he'd say, now, son, say, here's one. And he'd look off stage. Is he there? No, he's gone. Right, here's one. And you thought you were going to get one, really get a good one here. And it's only for you and me. The bosses have gone. So now I can really go to town.
That's what people like. They like to feel that the only people he's ever told this to, they're the only people. It's just happening. Something's happening that night, the night that you're there. And that's the whole joy of live comedy anyway. That's the appeal of it for me. Doing it is that it only happens that night with those people.
Now listen, the last time I played this theatre, I cracked a joke and somebody told the manager. They're not entitled to do that. It's jealousy. And how do I know? Because as a rule, he sits in the box, and tonight he's not there. Now I'm going to crack the same joke, but don't you laugh, because if you laugh, he'll know it's rude. Now I'll find out where he is. I think he's round the back. Now don't move, and don't go out. Don't you go out till I come back. He's on the side, sitting in a bar chair with a silk hat and a whip. Now, don't laugh.
His eyes are looking round the whole time. He's got these huge, big blue eyes, and he's looking round, and he's making eye contact with all the audience the whole time. And that's what you have to do to keep them all together. It's like sort of rounding sheep up. You have to keep them all in the same space and attack them all at the same time.
Aye, I saw you. Roses are red, violets are blue. How do I know? I've seen them on the line. I remember you.
He used to say to the audience, when he had them absolutely in his grip, "There'll never be another one, lady." It was addressed to a woman at this point. "Have a good look, there'll never be another one." I think he was right. There never has been. There couldn't be, really. He was a unique creature. There have been other great comics since, certainly. But none of them had that devilish cheek, a deliberate attempt to shock the authorities and to embrace the audience.
I've never seen anyone who's used an audience as well as Max did. I mean, he would do it. I always remember doing the Finsbury Park Empire with him, and I thought, well, now, everything that Max has tried to create over the years came in his opening line on that stage. Now, Mary from the dairy, oh, he's going to be here, you know, what's going to happen, what's going to happen? And he walked on and he said, "I went to the chemist yesterday." And he waited, and this great roar just grew and grew and rolled around the audience. Max would only go to the chemist for one reason: it wouldn't be a toothbrush. It's the classic recording that everybody who's interested in variety should get, is Max at the Met, the LP, made that. And I was in the audience when he made that. And it really is the very best recording of any variety performer, because it's done live, it's done with that funny old band with Ivan Dozen conducting, the great MD at the Met Edgware Road. The audience are dead right. You hear that one woman in the audience laughing, who Max used to say, if I can get one of them, if I can get one of them, he said, I know I'm all right.
I like the girls who do. I like the girls who don't. I hate the girl who says she will, and then she says she won't. But the girl I like the best of all, and I think you'll say I'm right, is the girl who says she never does, but she looks as though she... Here, this...
I think all comedy is rhythm and timing, really. That the content is very low down on the list. It's not as important as the way you say something and the speed at which you say it and the syllables you choose and the consonants you choose to say it with. It's almost like if you could hear it, if you didn't speak English, you would still find it funny because that rhythm would just carry you along.
It was pretty well polished. He had an enormous sense of rhythm. Well, that was proved by his pauses, really. He got the beat right all the time. And he also was the antic spirit of Brighton.
The short and the tall and the big and the small, there are ladies of every shade. If you hurry, you'll see them all down at the bathing parade. The dark and the fair, you can all have a share of the ladies that never will fade. There is something to thrill you there down at the bathing parade. You'll see some wonderful costumes they are wearing, all of them filled, you may be sure. Bring your relations, see the creations Grandma wore in the days of yore. You'll have no regrets with the blondes and brunettes. There are ladies of every grade, and they're all of them someone's pets down at the bathing parade. But I've got my own studios at Brighton, and a woman came to my house 11:30 on Monday morning. She said, Max, I want you to paint a snake on my knee. I went dead white, honestly. No, well, I'm not strong. So, listen, I jumped out of bed, see? And, listen. Now, listen a minute. So, I started to paint the snake just above her knee. That's where I started. But I had to chuck it. She smacked me in the face. I didn't know a snake was so long. How long's an ordinary snake?
People love to see him at the seaside. He was the essence of the naughtiness of the seaside, of the sexual relaxation of the seaside. Reflected his time. He was a man who came into his own, I suppose, during the Great Depression, or the end of it. And he was a mobile seaside comic postcard by Donald McGill. And he also was a hero.
What's that? Pictures. Let me take a look. No, you're too young. I'll develop one or two. Let's have a look. I saw that. Yeah.
A boy and a girl went out hiking. Of course they were both wearing shorts. They stopped at the old Pig and Whistle, and there had a couple of ports. When they got back the same evening, the neighbors all started to quiz, for he came home late wearing her shorts. She came home late wearing his.
Well, yes, it was often in the mind. Not always. Not always.
It always used to make me laugh. You had the two books, you know, the blue book and the white book. Now, I've got two sorts of jokes, lady, the white book and the blue book. Now, what would you like to hear?
Now, I've got two books. I've got a white book and a blue book. And by that you can gather I've got two sorts of stories. I'm going to tell you what had the white book first. It says in the white book, listen, there was a little girl who had a little curl right in the middle of her forehead. When she was good, she was very, very good, and when she was bad, she was very, very popular. Now, listen, you can't expect too much in the white book. This is the book. This is where we all get pinched. I don't care, I'll go, I've been before. I have. I won't walk, I'll make them get the bar out.
It's the police.
Well, what are we going to do?
I'm hiding under the bed. Once a year, a copper leaves his beat. See, sit down. See? That's a pose. What they call a pose.
Very good.
Linking up with the statue dance. Now, I'll give you another one. In the sea, he drops his great big feet. See, you get 2 running.
Yeah.
You're lucky. Oh, you keep your runners all. Now then, this one's tricky. This is very tricky. Now, what's this? All the crabs and shrimps and winkle shout with all their might. What are you doing? What are you doing? Hey? It wasn't a pose, you know. Deliberate. Absolutely deliberate. I'll give you a written guarantee of. Stop it, will you? You're getting me all nervous. Now, what's this? This is funny. This is what they call a knockout. Watch the footwork here. Splendid, boys. Here comes the copper. Good night.
Mary had a little bear, to which she was so kind. I'd often seen her bear in front. I'll get on with the next book here. Listen, you listen. It says in the white book, a mother of eight sat up late stitching her husband's pajamas. See page 4, blue book. There's the answer. A stitching time saves 9. Now, I'll tell you what I'll do now.
They were all exactly the same jokes, but it was building up this sense of, is he going to go too far all the time? When you sat in the stalls and watched him, you really did think, I'd love to be like this bloke. Look at the way he dresses. Nobody ever dressed like that, you know, when we were kids. He knows everybody, you know. He's chatted up every bit of crumpet there is possible in the world, and he's made it with every bit of crumpet that's possible in the world. Barmaids, landladies, anybody, you know. And Max knew how to chat them up, and he knew everybody, you know. It was like John Osborne said, it was like as he walked on the stage, you could smell the 4-ale bar and all that. Absolutely right.
I think what was the real secret of his excitement was the fact when he was on the stage, he generated a sense of danger. And this is something that's always appealed to me tremendously. And all the way along, the moment he arrived, you thought, this is somebody who is dicing, who is gambling, and is going to get away with it.
Interesting story about The Entertainer, the play, which John Osborne wrote about, a sort of failed comic. And while Max was alive, John Osborne always denied totally that he'd based Archie Rice on Max Miller. And so did Laurence Olivier, who played Archie Rice in the theatre, said, no, nothing to do with Max Miller at all. This was when Max was alive. When Max died, of course, John Osborne said, yes, of course it was based on Max Miller. And Laurence Olivier said, well, of course it was. I went to see him time and time again to get it right. But Olivier, he hit it absolutely on the button. He said, it wasn't Max Miller. He said it was based on Max Miller, but the difference was, and this was the genius, he said, of Max Miller, Max just got it right. And that's why he got big laughs. He said, Archie just got it wrong. That's why he never got any laughs.
It's all clever stuff, you know, isn't it? All clever.
I very much doubt whether there is a single patter comedian, as we used to be called, stand-up comedian now, who doesn't owe certain debts to those stand-up comedians who have deeply impressed him or her most, and to whom they do not pay some kind of tribute in their performance, quite inadvertently perhaps. Years and years ago, I remember saying to Tony Hancock, that line you do just before you do that little bit of a song, you say to the drummer, give me a touch of the brushes, not too much, I might like it. I said, that's Max Miller's line. He said, I know that. He said, I love that line. And I said to Max once, at the Metropole, he said, I remember saying to him, I love that line you do. And Max said, when I'm dead, look after it. So when Max died, he said, Hancock said, I put that line in my act, and I've looked after it ever since. I said, doesn't get much of a laugh. He said, nevertheless, it goes in and it stays in every night. So I said, you got anybody to look after it after you're gone? He said, no, you can have it if you like. I never, ever give a cabaret performance with music without saying to the drummer, give me a touch of the brushes, not too much, I might get to like it.
Hit it!
You could say that Max was responsible for a lot of comedians. I must have seen 100 comedians who are unmemorable, and it would be a shame to name them, who were inferior Max Millers. But he also inspired cheerful Charlie Chester. He inspired Tommy Trinder. They all arose from the wake of Max Miller.
I was born in Eastbourne, and we both had this Six accent, you know, down and round and out, and we both had the same flavour. This is before I'd even seen him. So I came to London, and as I grew up, I won a lot of competitions, and I turned comic, and I was about the youngest stand-up comic in the country, I think. And so I was doing my business, and then suddenly somebody said, are you Max Miller's son? So he took exception to that.
It isn't fair, I tell you. Here am I, a creative artist, working my fingers to the bones, I mean my quicks to the nails. And for what? Oh. To get new material for my own act. And what happens? Along comes the West Island Terrier and knocks the lot off.
I wasn't anything really like Max Miller, only in looks and delivery. And Max brought in, when I was at the Prince of Wales in 1937, he came in with a barrister and sat in the audience to see if he could stop me working. And he went to Moss Empires and said that if they booked me, he wouldn't work. And of course, he was the big draw in those days. I was only up and coming, but he was the big draw. And if he said I won't work, of course, they lose money. And so I was barred from the Moss Empires for 9 years. But I could do all the independent halls. And I did those and managed to get a living 1 week in, 10 weeks out, you know. So until, of course, war broke out then.
I was in Dudley 5 weeks ago in Dudley. It was a raid. I don't like raids. Honest, no, when that warning goes, my tummy goes right over, honestly. No, I can't help it, you see. Goes right over, and I run in anybody's house. Never made a bloomer yet, I'm not kidding. And this particular night, I was dropping them all over the place, I will. And there was a fella running down the street in his shirt. That's all he had on, a little tiny shirt, running down the street. I said, where are you going? He said, home. Here,
We first did Applesauce, which was the show at the Open Empire, but it was bombed. We were bombed out of there, and I don't remember how long it was, about 2 months, maybe 3, before it opened again, same show, at the London Palladium. And I used to do a very short little sketch with Max at the beginning of the show. As he picks me up, I'm sitting on the embankment, and he offers me a cigarette. I say, no, thank you, I don't smoke. He said, well, let's go and have a drink. I say, no, thank you, I don't drink. He says, oh, well, give us a kiss. I say, I don't kiss. He pushes me over the embankment, says, you're too good to live.
I never take no for an answer unless it's in the negative. But this time I'm positive.
He was a folk hero, Max, and the name was synonymous with anything leery, anything sort of rude, that sort of stuff. And Howard Leader, who used to be in That's Life, his uncle was in a prisoner of war camp during the war, and the German officers and all the German guards and everything, they made them, as they marched into their billet, they made them jump up and shout out, Heil Hitler, you see. So they didn't fancy doing this. And for the entire duration he was in the prisoner of war camp, Howard's uncle, when they used to say, Hail Hitler, would jump up and say, Max Miller! And they all did. But what a compliment to Max, to think that, and he would have just loved that. He would have just loved that because he was terribly patriotic. He did do a thing with a carry bag, and he got out, in the carry bag, cabbage, or turnip or something, Hitler's head, you know, Hitler's hair, carrot, Hitler's nose. Reaching there, he'd bring out 2 potatoes, which used to get a big laugh, and he said, no, you're all wrong, King Edward's. Put them back in the bag.
I've got a pocket full of blue jokes. Some are old and some are new. We must have fun. I've got more than one. I'll tell them to you. Yes, tell them to you. I think I'll start off with a clean one. The rest will follow on. I've got a pocket full of blue jokes, but please don't get me wrong.
Mine's a personality act. I don't do anything, but what I do good, you know. See? And I, what are you around the waist, about 24?
He's a boy, isn't he, eh? Hope so.
There's always been a certain sexual ambivalence about comics. Of course, in Shakespeare's time, all the women were actually acted by men, so the whole thing was a sort of a dubious enterprise. But most of the great comics, not all, have never come on as very macho. Of course, some of them the reverse. Frankie Howard, for instance, comes on as very, very effeminate. And so did Sid Field, in a way, you know, the hand on the hip and all that. Miller didn't do that, but nevertheless, he had a soft femininity about him. And I think, furthermore, he attracted women in the audience more than men, in a sense. He confided in them, which made him a very different comic from the more macho and, in my view, less successful comics who just come on, you know, nudge the men and talk about women. Miller, on the contrary, talked to the women, he did. And he'd mention them a lot, you know, how's your memory, girl, and all that sort of thing. I think it was one of his unique qualities that he understood that. Win the women and the men can laugh too.
I've not got a nice figure, lady. Haven't I? No, I haven't I, Ducky? No, honest, no, well, when I'm talking, it's rude to interfere. It's like married life. No, I'm not a nice lady. I'm not drawn in, I'm all muscle. Honest, I'm not. Don't they ride up this weather? I've got new ones on tonight, lady, new ones. All rubber. Do you wear them, lady? You do, don't you, Ducky? Oh, you want to wear them. They're very unhealthy. Very unhealthy. Listen, listen. You want to wear them right next to your skin. Right next to your skin. That's how you wear them. Little tiny holes. You've seen them. Yes, you have. You've seen them in the shop. I've got them on and they're nice, too. Lovely. Not drawn in, honest, I'm not. Isn't it nice? I feel nice. You do look funny when you take them off. You look like a golf ball.
He's very magnetic, and he's very sexy. And he's also not particularly masculine or feminine. He's a mixture. And I think that gives you a huge appeal. I think a lot of our best comedians are not particularly one sex or the other, but they're a mixture.
When I get about here, see, I should go across there to gallop, like I do on Sundays when I go riding. I go riding every Sunday now, along right in front, side saddle. Side saddle, that's the only way I can stay on. I've got my own skirt and everything. And last Sunday, everybody was laughing. I didn't know it was a city horse.
Max Miller was on a show with Ted Ray, Eric Barker, and Dennis Goodwin and myself. It was a charity do at Streatham. And I remember hearing him say to Ted in the wings, you know, he's just like making love, this game. You go out there and you make love to him. You do a bit of a warm-up, like you do with a lady, and then you get on with the job. And when you finish, they should be exhausted, and you should be too. But you feel good.
I was on the desert, 6 months on the desert, and the first thing I saw was a mummy. I think she was looking for her daddy. And she looked into my eyes. She kept looking into my eyes. I think she was after me lashes. Because I've got big eyes, haven't I? When I open them, look. That's me mother's fault, looking all over England for me father. Now, we fell down, we fell on the sand, and I wanted to teach her a game that I knew, but she wouldn't wear me, see? So I said, have you had a wash this morning? She said, no. I said, why not? I said, we can't get any water. I said, well, how do you keep yourself clean? She said, we smother ourselves with oil. And she was speaking the truth, because every time I went to kiss her, I felt myself slipping. So I said to her, I'll give you one more chance. I'll marry you. I've got me bike. I can get away, see? She said, you can't marry me unless you ask my father. I said, how old's your father? She said, he's 3,000 years old and he's got 150 wives. I said, where is he? She said, this is him coming along on a stretcher. Doubting? No, doubt. When he got up to me, he said, what do you think of my daughter? I said, I think she's very nice. I'd like to marry her. He said, if you marry my daughter, I'll give you 3 acres and a cow. I'm still waiting for the 3 acres, but this is what I'm going to tell you.
He was, of course, married for a long time, most of his life. And when he died, my mother was living in Brighton, and Mrs. Miller became a sort of uncrowned queen. You know, she was asked to open anything that had to be opened, and she turned out very dignified. I have to wonder what she thought of her husband's professional career there.
Listen. Are you listening? They took the vanity from the peacock, the cunning from the fox, the brains from a jackass, the jawbone from an ox, the venom from the viper, the stinger from the bee, put them all in my old woman and bound her onto me.
Being married to Max was one joyous round, you might say. I mean, not joyous from the first, I admit, but it was in a way because there was always that waiting for something to turn up and that sort of something to work for, you know, hoping for a letter or going to an agent or getting a contract. And also when he got into variety, of course, it was very different. But when we started, it wasn't very easy.
I'm what they call a go-getter. I don't let the grass grow under my feet, and when I go after a thing, I get it.
But it was a toss-up, you know. whether he really gave the whole stage business up entirely. Thank God he didn't.
Listen, I've just come back from my holidays, and always have a wonderful time when I go on my holidays, because I haven't got one of those wives who says, where have you been? How much have you spent? Who have you been with? She doesn't say that. She comes with me. She didn't go with me this time. I went by myself. I went to Blackpool, and I went round looking for rooms, and I knocked on a door. And a dear old lady came to the door, a nice lady. A little bit and some more, not quite so much, and then perhaps. And that's all I want, just a little encouragement. She said, what do you want? I said, could you accommodate me? She said, I'm awfully sorry, I'm full up. I said, but surely you could squeeze me in the little back room, couldn't you? She said, I could, but I haven't got time now.
I decided there must be something wrong with the fact that he couldn't get booked as Henry Sargent. And I said, it's your name that's wrong, darling. And he said, well, you think of a better one. Well, I just thought, and right out of the blue, I don't know where it came from, the name Max Miller.
Before Max started, he was a motor mechanic. And then when First World War broke out, he went into the forces and they sent him to India. He used to tell me this. And he said he got a job in the concert party. He didn't want to do too much soldiering, so he thought, I'll get in the concert party because he could sing a bit and this, that, and the other. And so that's how Max started. And when he came back, he told me, when he got back to Brighton, he didn't feel like going back into the motor mechanic business because he'd been away from it. He wanted to get into entertainment business. And Jack Shepherd, Entertainers, was on the Brighton Pier, at the bottom of the pier, the Piros. It was open air, it was stuff. And Max went down there to see them and asked for a job. And lo and behold, he got a job as a light comedian in the show. As for his way out, flowery outfits, that obviously came from Jack Shepherd's show, because the Piros used to have, you know, the clown costumes and the motleys and that sort of thing, and it had to be colourful in the open air. And I think all his men were dressed in green or blue or red, the suits, so that you stood out. And I think that when Max started to go on the stage by himself, this came back to him, that he put on these flowery dress, the +4s and this sort of thing.
It's very interesting to look at early photographs of Max Miller when he was first starting out in Concert Party. Tall, almost handsome, apart from the beaky nose and the wide cheeks, but he's standing there with a party of entertainers. And you know then that he must have been going to see all the other shows on the coast, seeing the other comics, what jokes are they telling, hearing the jokes in the pub, going to see the Barkers, particularly along the front at Brighton, and subsequently at such places as Blackpool and Yarmouth, saying, come along in, the people who worked in the carnivals and circuses. Come a little closer. His whole attitude, that come into my confidence, the glance into the wings, this is just between you and me, that he adopted. All those tricks were prevalent among the guys who stood out front of the sideshows and the fun fairs and the travelling outfits, doing exactly that kind of barking. I think that he used that technique together with this kind of patter that he also heard from the men in the market, the guys who were selling you something off the stalls. Come a little closer and I'll tell you what I'm going to do.
Vitality, that's what you want in business. You can't do without it. Mind you, I don't say you haven't got it. You've got everything. It's not fair that one woman should have such a lot. But you haven't got salesmanship. Where would I be without salesmanship?
Yeah, that'll be 6pence.
What for?
A cigarette.
Sorry, it slipped my memory. And you know why it slipped my memory? Because it's a small item. I'll explain to you what I mean. I came in for a packet of cigarettes, didn't I? You sold me a packet of cigarettes, am I right? Yeah. If you'd have had salesmanship, you'd have sold me a box of cigars, and if I'd have had the money, I'd have bought them. And look at your counter. It's all wrong. You must remember that your counter is the main attraction of your store, and you're the main attraction of your counter. In other words, you're a counter attraction. Remind me to take you out one night, will you?
He's best as educated Evans. He's great as the bookmaker. He's wonderful as the guy who's going to sell you something that you don't really want. And he's a snappy dresser. He's a snappy mover. He's got little ways with him that endear him to you. A perfect first film role for Max Miller was as the character in J.B. Priestley's The Good Companions, in which John Gielgud made a very youthful appearance. He was a song plugger. And what better job could Max have had than going round with a little piece of material trying to sell you something that was inconsiderable as if it was gold. Max was gold. It was himself he was selling.
Calder and Hunterman.
Who are they?
Never heard of them?
No.
Sorry. They're the biggest music publishing company in the world, and I'm their star traveller.
Oh, thanks very much.
No, don't go. It's all right. I don't want to sell you anything.
Thank God for
I was
that.
in your show last night, and I heard some of your numbers, and they're pretty wonderful numbers.
Oh, I'm glad you think
And
so.
I think with your personality and my brains, we should make a lot of money. I mean that. Now tell me, who wrote these songs?
I did.
You wrote them. You're a clever boy. What are you going to do with them?
I haven't thought about it.
Haven't thought about it. Why don't you give them to me?
No.
You're quite right. Why should you? If you wrote them, you're entitled to keep them to yourself. You know what I would do with them if you gave them to me? I'd get in my car.
Got a car, have you?
Got a what?
Got a car.
Sure, I've got a car. What do you think? I've got a bicycle. I'm the star traveller. It's on the card there. You can't be reading it. I'd get in my car and I'd be away in the morning.
Now, how much do you think I'll get for these songs?
For the songs?
Yeah.
One particular song? I should ask £50. £50. And then try and get it. It's another joke. If he offers you a tenner, I should take it.
Okay.
Yeah, what was the song? What was the song you were playing last night? The song you were
What?
playing?
Which one do you mean?
The one you were playing with the girl there.
Oh, that Lucky for Me, you mean?
What do you call it?
Lucky for You.
Lucky for you. It was lucky for you I was in last night.
He used to go into a place called the Express Dairy in Charing Cross Road, the bottom of Charing Cross. All the pros that were working used to get there. Ted Ray, Vic Oliver, all the pros that you knew were working. The Crazy Gang, Miller, the lot. And Max sat there one day with Sammy Kern, who was a big hook-nosed Yiddish fellow, lovely man.
The waitress that used to wait on our table, her name was Mary, and always used to sit at the same table. And the idea struck me right away. Mary from the dairy. And I got down and I had an old packet of weights, you know, a fourpenny packet of weight packet, and I tore it open and I started to write. I fell in love with Mary from the dairy, but Mary wouldn't fall in love with me. I said, Max, I've got a song for you that will make you as famous as Sally Mae Gracie Phil's. He said, well, I'm not bothered with songs at the moment. He says, I don't think I'll buy it. So I said, Max, this is the song that you will make you. He said, well, I don't need it. I said, look, I'm skint. I need some money. I want money. He said, well, I'll tell you what, he said, I'll give you £4. He says, and I'll take the song. He said, sign this bit of paper. So I put down, I, Sam Kern, sell the right singing rights to Max Miller. And I got my £4 and I rushed home to the old woman. I said, Annie, dinner money.
As soon as they started that, Mary from the Dairy, it was like danger time. The audience were thinking, oh no, this is going to be, is he going to go too far? Is he going to get us all slung out? Is he going to get himself put in jail? Is he going to go too far? He never did. Never did go too far. It was wonderfully right in that line between what was filthy and what was honest vulgarity and what was innuendo. Marvellous. But I think he was totally unique. I never saw another performer quite like him.
Give me 4 in a bar, 2 barmaids and shuffle and cut twice. I'm known as a cheeky chappie. The things I say are snappy. That's why the pretty girls all fall for me. I don't do things contrary. My love will never vary. Ask Mary from the dairy. Here's the key. I fell in love with Mary from the dairy, but Mary wouldn't fall in love with me. Down by an old mill stream, we both sat down to dream. Little did she know that I was thinking of a scheme. Now on our farm, said Mary from the dairy, we've got the finest cows you've ever seen. I don't do things by halves, I'll let you see my calves, and they're not the same shaped calves as Nellie Dean. Isn't that a lovely melody, lady? Perhaps you're right and all. My missus says she's going to divorce me. The moment that she does, and I am free. There's a pretty girl I know, I'll take her and I'll show just where Mary from the dairy fell for me. Dance. You see, I don't overdo it, no exertion. I'm double jointed, aren't I? Look, both legs alike, no cheating. I should knock myself out one night, I know I will. There's a twist, look, went right round. All clever stuff, no rubbish. Going down. Going down again. Now I'm off. Coming back. Scissors. Knife and fork. No proper caution, ain't I? Splits. Now it'll hurt me, won't it? Good night.
Please forgive me, I'm very tired. I've been shoplifting. And some of those shops are very heavy, I'll tell you.
I had been writing jokes since I was about 12. I started writing jokes with Max Miller in mind. And that's when the great Max Miller, actually, I encountered him. He rushed past me. I had a sheet of my papers with my jokes written on. And he rushed past me because it was raining slightly. And he said, "Give it here, son." And signed it and gave it back to me because he thought I was an autograph hunter.
Me autograph in your book? Sure. Do you want a poem in it as well?
No, I've got one. Just sign your name.
Just sign my name, under the poem.
Yeah.
Right. You're going to get on. You're a smart lad. Hold that, will you?
I saw his dresser, a man called Ernest, and I gave him the jokes, and he went inside. I don't know whether he'll see them. And he went inside, and I stood there in the pouring rain. About half an hour later, Ernest came out and gave me half a crown. That was in payment.
There's a little mouse walking along the pavement on Piccadilly there, and a woman frightened it, and he stepped off the curb and got knocked down by a bus. Picked himself up, went across the road, went into a music shop. Said the man behind the counter, "Do you sell mouse organs?" And the man said, "That's funny. That's funny you should say that. We had a little mouse in here yesterday, and she wanted mouse organs." The little mouse said, "I know who that was. That was harmonica."
I was doing a charity show at, of all places, the London Coliseum, and I was the first comic on, and Max was the top of the bill. He wasn't at all well, but he asked for a chair to sit in the wings and see my act. I had said to him, "How do you do, Mr. Miller? Do you remember me? And why should I, son?" "Well, because I brought you these jokes to Lewisham Hippodrome some 5 or 6 years ago." And he said, "Oh, yes, very pretty stuff." I don't think he actually remembered, but he was gracious enough. "Yes, very pretty stuff." He said, "Do you still write your own stuff, son?" And I said, "Yes, and I'm doing it. I'm performing tonight." "Oh, Michael," he said to Michael North, the producer, "get me a chair in the wings. I'll watch the lad." So he sat there, not feeling at all well, and watched me die. I was on early, and I wasn't very good. But I did my full 10 minutes. And then I came off, and he said, "I'll give you a tip or two." And for about, the greater part of an hour, till they knocked on the door and said he'd be on soon, he gave me what I guess you could call a masterclass in comedy. It was quite the most generous thing any comedian ever did for me. He took my performance apart. He remembered all the jokes I'd done. He said, "You don't want to say that. You don't want to say that. You're a young boy. You shouldn't go out there and audacity. Do you know what audacity is?" I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "You can be racy. You can be audacious. But you mustn't be knowing. You mustn't let them see that you think you're crafty." "How do you mean?" "Well, that joke you do," he said. "That joke you do about taking the girlfriend home to meet her father, and you want to marry her, and your father says, 'Have you got the means to make her happy?' And you says, 'Yes.' She laughs at it. Well, you shouldn't say that, son. You shouldn't say it. You should say, 'Well, yes.' She always gets a good laugh. Find some other way of doing it." So by that time I was already thinking, yes, he's quite right. I am appearing to be too adult for a 23-year-old.
"It's a little girl. She keeps biting her nails. And I said, 'Stop biting your nails, because you know what'll happen to you?' She said, 'What'll happen to me?' She said, 'You won't half get fat if you bite your nails.' She said, 'Well, I won't bite them anymore, Mum.' My mother took her shopping, got on a bus, and there's a fella sitting in the corner of the bus weighing about 20 stone. And she said, 'Mum, I'll get like that, won't I?' She said, 'You'll get worse than that if you bite your nails.' She said, 'Well, I won't bite them anymore.' And after shopping, they got on another bus. And there's a blonde sitting in the corner. She's carrying a bit of weight as well. And the kiddie kept looking at the blonde kept looking at the kiddie. And the blonde, she couldn't stand it any longer, so she said to the kiddie, 'Do you know me?' And the kiddie said, 'No, but I know what you've been doing.'"
Max also gave me a very great tip that I've observed ever since. He asked me why I always did the full punchline. He called it the finisher. You know your finisher? Why do you do the last word? No need for it. Not let them spot it. Let them figure out where it is.
Jack and Jill went up the hill just like two cock linnets. Jill came down with half a crown. She wasn't up there too. Here, I've got her.
He never told an actually blue gag. There were lots of rumours that he told. Every bad story that was doing the rounds, I'd say, have you heard what Max is doing?
I honestly don't know what the stories about him being banned from the BBC are, because I don't think anything's ever been written down what it was. I mean, the famous story that he was supposed to have said, was, I was crossing this chasm, he said, on a bridge, he said, and it was only enough room for one person to cross this bridge. And this beautiful girl started to walk towards me on the bridge. Well, he said, honestly, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to block her passage or toss myself off.
If that means what I think it means, you don't come from a very good family.
I don't believe in a million years Max ever told the joke. I think it's an apocryphal story. I never, ever heard him ever use a joke as bald and as obvious as that. His was much cleverer. He was much cleverer.
And if he upset the BBC, it was the cleverest thing Miller ever did. He made himself into a national cause overnight, and people up and down the country were saying, would you hear about Miller?
I mean, the famous story of him getting into trouble with the governors, who was the Val Parnell and the Moss Empires at that time, was he was put into he did a Royal Variety performance, and they said to Max, now you've got 7 minutes when he got there. 7 minutes came up and he wouldn't come off. No, he said to the audience, the Americans have got a quarter of an hour, why shan't I do a bit more and all that? And he did about a quarter of an hour, 20 minutes or something. Came back into the dressing room, and there's Val Parnell waiting, absolutely fuming, you know, and said, you, Miller, he said, you'll never work for me again. And Max said, I'm sorry, Val. He said, you're £120,000 too late.
Now I'm going in to see the governor and tell him what I think of it.
And the tag to the story is even better, because they got into trouble at the Palladium, but they couldn't get enough headliners, and within 3 months, Max was back top of the bill at the Palladium.
You're the greatest draw I've ever had.
And the greatest draw you'll ever have.
It's true, isn't it? Well, I remember who looked after Max's business at one time was Billy Marsh, you know, was a very famous theatrical agent. And he said Max's boast was always, he said, you never lose money with Miller. That was his greatest boast. And they were in somewhere, and he phoned up, Billy Marsh phoned up and spoke to Max Miller. He was doing a week somewhere. And he said, how did you do? Max said, it's not been a very good week. It's not been a good week at all. He said, in fact, Billy, I want you to find out how much money the geezer's lost, you know. So Billy found out. He told Max, and Max sent the fella a cheque and said, you see, you never lose money with Miller.
Still, whether you're rich or whether you're poor, it's nice to be rich. And whether you're married or whether you're single, it's nice anyway.
He used to have a large string of what I call hangers-on, old comics who make a living sort of thinking up gags and coming along. So, and there was many a fiver who used to slip through there. I think he was generous to those he liked to be generous to. He didn't like to be taken for a ride.
There are lots of legendary stories about his meanness. There's a pub in Henley, you know, and up until a few years ago it had a brass plaque let into the floor by the bar there, and carved on this brass plaque it said, Max Miller stood around here. That's how rare it was. He had a blue plaque on the spot where he'd actually bought a drink.
So I went in the pub to have a drink. The 6 teddy boys walked in, and one of them said, give us 6 whiskies. And what are you having? I said, I'll have a whiskey. I said, give him a large one. Give him a large one. I had a large whiskey, and that fella called for 6 more. Said, give him one. I had another large whiskey. I had 6 large whiskies with these teddy boys. And I looked at the clock, 10:30. I said, sorry, I said, I've got to be going now. So one of them said, just a minute, you. Aren't you Max Miller? I said, yes. He said, you've got a lot of property in Brighton, haven't you? I said, yes. I've got 1 or 2 hotels and made half a dozen houses. He said, you want to sell one of them and buy a round of drinks? Here, there was a
I remember his missus saying to me, you know, she said that people always said Max was terribly mean. She said, but I'll tell you a story. She said, during the war, she said, I came home. She said, I'd been out shopping one afternoon. She said, I came back to our house in Brighton. And Max said, well, there you are, Duck. He said, you better pack up now. He said, we're moving. She said, what do you mean moving? This is our house. He said, no, I've given the house to St Dunstan's for the war. And he had done. And you never, ever heard anything about that side of Max. And he wouldn't have it either, you know.
He's a very private man. He used to say, how fortunate we are, Johnny. And I used to say, well, how do you mean? He says, well, doing things that we love to do. When you think of people going to work, at 8 o'clock in the morning and not finish until 5, and then coming up to Saturday looking for the weekend. He said, we're very fortunate to be in the work that we love, and because he loved the business, he loved to perform.
I know exactly what you're saying to yourself. You're saying he's the happiest lad in the world, and you're right. I've got no troubles, nothing to live for, and that's the way to live. And you know why I'm happy? Because you've laughed at everything I've said, and you've applauded everything, and you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. I get paid for what I'm doing. You're there to be amused, and I'm here to amuse you. When I go to a theatre, I take it nice and easy. If I go and see Shakespeare, I go fast asleep. Now, I'll make it easier for you. All the men undo their coats and vests and lie back, and the women do the best they can.
He's a very difficult chap, I would think, to get to know. I mean, somebody once said, Max used to say, oh, well, you know, I'm nothing, really, I'm nothing. He said, when I'm off stage, he said, but the Cheeky Chappie, whoa, no, he's something.
The strongest impression I ever had watching Max Miller was towards the end of his life at the Finsbury Park Empire when I went to see him. And I remember I'd been on that stage only a week or two before, and the theatre seemed very large to me. But when Miller came on, the illusion was the walls coming in, the ceiling coming down, and the whole thing turning into a sort of sitting room. He made the whole theatre intimate through the sheer force of his communication. He seemed to me to be as close as you are now, and yet he was 60 feet away, at least, more. He had the magic of a magnet, and that, I think, informed all his comedy. He drew you to him, made you laugh, and wouldn't let you go until he had.
Mary Ann, Mary Ann, let us get together on the 5-year plan. We'll both go off to business, every morning 'twill be fine. I'll bring my wages home and you can put your bit to mine. Go on, make something of that, go on, make something of it. Filthy lot, filthy. You say you cannot sleep at night, your bed is no temptation. Say the word and marry me, and I'll be your salvation. I'll take your Horlicks up to bed and stop your night starvation. Yes, away you go, Ollie, away you go.
He's just so skilled, and I think, you know, along the lower reaches of the musical world, there were a lot of very dodgy acts and people who were not very good, and it, you know, it wasn't a complete golden age. It must have been full of absolute dross in most of the little theatres, and he's just brought it to a complete fine art.
He was the greatest front cloth comic of all time.
I just think he was magical.
Mary Ann, we'll both be as loving as we can. The coffee beans each morning for your breakfast I will grind up. Before I go to bed I'll bolt the door, the clock I'll wind up. And that will give you tons of time for you to make your mind up. Won't it be lovely, Mary Ann? That's it!
He could drop it from being really cheeky and really brassy and then get this softness. That was true Max Miller. He had a lovely sense of humour and a lovely softness to him, did Max. Lovely man.
Isn't it grand to see someone smile? A smile is the thing that makes life worthwhile. When the things you plan have somehow gone astray, you've got a certain feeling it's not your lucky day. Isn't it grand to see someone smile? You feel like a millionaire for a while. Walking down the street, you greet everyone you meet with a happy-go-lucky, happy smile. Even though the skies are grey above you, they won't be grey for very long. Soon you'll see the blue skies up above you, If you keep singing this song, oh, isn't it grand to see someone smile? A smile is the thing that makes life worthwhile. I'm going to catch my train, so until we meet again, a happy-go-lucky, happy, happy smile. Goodbye now, a happy-go-lucky, happy, happy smile.
I forgive him.
Never be another, will there? Never be another. Now, when I'm dead and gone, the game's finished. There's no doubt.
Good night, everybody.